Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Hard Choice. I am your host. I am Brad Draper, and I am grateful you are here. I'm grateful that you have taken your time, your precious time, to be with me. This is an investment. It may not be an investment of financial, but it is an investment of your time. And if you go back to previous episodes, I talk about the value of time, which is the highest vibrating frequency. It is the highest value because it is the only I should say depreciating asset, but it is the fleeting asset. That's the word I'm looking for. You can't get it back, right? You have a finite amount of time. So I'm grateful for you, that you are here. I'm grateful that you have chosen this episode to listen to and to have this communication with me, to have this conversation. Speaking of conversations, as usual, I typically have at least one, it's probably 2 to 4 a month, between one every 2 weeks and one every week, of a conversation of somebody that has been impacted by this episode or by this podcast. And I am so grateful to receive those communications. Keep them coming. It fires me up. It gives me direction. It gives me aim. And if there's criticisms, I love those too, because I'm always, always in search of honing in those skills to speak to you, to cause influence, to cause impact. Because, like I said in previous episodes, I strive to be a lighthouse. I strive to cast light and give direction on how you need to show up in your life, what it takes, what that hard choice is, the simple step for showing up. So let's dive right into this thing. The identity. What in the world does that mean? Side note, if you're watching this, before we get going, I'm on YouTube. Episode 2 on YouTube. We're getting after it. I will be doing future YouTube side clips that will not be posted on audio. A little bit different me, a little bit more raw, a little more authentic, and not as directed by way of who I am speaking to. Because by way of the audio only for this point, and then these full length episodes, I am specifically speaking to a particular person, and you know who you are. It's called your ICA, your ideal client avatar. It keeps you from jumping all over the place, keeps it directed. So I have a conversation with one person. I truly actually imagine this person in front of me, and I speak with them. We have a conversation. But the identity, what in the world is that? I want you to really think about yourself right now. If you're looking at me like I'm tapping on my head, right? I'm actually not tapping on my head. I'm tapping on the head of this vessel I'm in called my body. I'm tapping on the head. I'm not tapping on me. If I were to tap like this, for those if you're watching, if you're listening, I'm tapping on my chest. I'm tapping on this body I am in. You are the one who experiences, right? If you show up early somewhere, you don't say, my body's gonna be early. You say, I will be early. You are a whole metaphysical thing. Not really physical, spiritual, spatial, energetic being. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human having a spiritual experience. So, with all this in mind, I want you to really think about how you identify yourself. How do you show up? For example, I was thinking about this when I was riding my bike yesterday. I identify as a fit person. I have been fit my entire adult life. Why? Because I identify as that. And by identifying as a fit human, I do the things that a fit human would do. I go to the gym. I exercise on a daily basis, 7 days a week. I eat like a fit person would eat. There are times when I don't, and then I drill right back in, right? I'm not perfect, but I identify as a fit human. And very often, this conversation of would fit Brad eat the entire cake? No. If I identified as fat Brad, I would, but I don't. I identify as fit Brad. I would not. I would make sure I had the caloric amount that was aliquoted for it. Just because you're eating healthy doesn't mean you can't eat cake. It just means you eat it in portions, right? Love cake. I used to love donuts. No longer eat donuts. Haven't eaten donuts for quite some time now, but I did love them. You can always change what you identify as. Do you identify as a fat person? For instance, you get up, you plan to go to the gym. Maybe you got the gym pass. You even made it to the gym to get the pass. You set your clothes out, you got ready, you told everybody you're going to go to the gym tomorrow. Your alarm goes off, and if you listen to the first episode, you woke up to your alarm, right? You got up, and you realized, I only had 5 hours of sleep last night, or 6, or what have you. I'm tired. I'm sore. Maybe you got up and went to the gym the first day, and the next day you're sore because you have delayed onset muscle soreness known as DOMS. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to relax. I'm going to let my body heal. There is a time and place for that. I'm not saying there's not. But how do you identify? And this goes across to many, many things. I identify as someone that cares the way I look. I typically wear plain t-shirts and jeans. I identify as someone that wears nice shoes. I identify as somebody that wears watches. I have my wrist held up for those that aren't watching. Plug in. You should go watch these. You'll get a whole different experience, I promise. And for those watching that saw last week's, the room's changing, right? I'm adapting and I'm learning. Why? Because I took action. I learned a few things, and I'm going to continue learning. Just as when you take action, you will continue to learn. You will press forward, you will change, and you'll become better with each and every iteration. But back to this identity thing. Do you identify as someone that drives a particular kind of car? A very common one that I see is people in the dating scene, they date the same kind of person. Even when they move different states. I've got this friend, and this friend continuously dates this same toxic relationship, no matter where they go. No matter what town they live in, what state they live in, they always seem to find the same type of person. Why is that? Well, that's because they identify as somebody that dates that type of person. It's the only thing they can do. They are not valuable enough or worthy enough to date a higher, we'll call them, grade of human. Where do you identify yourself at in your health, in your wealth? Do you identify as a rich person, a wealthy person, a poor person, a person just getting by, a person that just barely pays their bills? Or do you identify as somebody that is financially abundant, prosperous, overflowing? These are things you need to ask. It's not naturally going to come because you identify by the things that you were taught. You were taught different things based off your environment. Some of it you could choose. As a kid, you definitely didn't choose what your environment was. Your parents kind of did that to some degree. But that doesn't mean you don't get to choose as an adult. That doesn't mean you don't get opportunities to change your environment. Did you know you don't have to stay in your house? That's a thing. There is somebody watching this. It's like, man, if only I could move, but I'm stuck here because of X, Y, and Z. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. We moved from our house down in Salt Lake up to Davis County, Utah, because of the commute. We moved. You can move physically, spiritually, emotionally, in your relationships. How do you identify? yourself. When did you choose this identity? Because it was a choice. I don't care who you are, you chose this for yourself. And by not choosing, you're still choosing. When, where, how, the whole who, what, where, when, how, why, right? The thing with why, though, I had a mentor teach me this recently that I've been pondering that I'll share with you. Who, what, where, when, why, how. Why is the only one that takes the presupposition that the person receiving the answer agrees with you. If you tell your child why they should do something, so like my son, when I tell him why he should wipe the toilet seat because he's in potty training, if he doesn't agree with my answer, it is therefore not correct to him because it presupposes, makes the presupposition, or there is a presupposition that the answer is correct. Oftentimes, if it's a superior talking to a subordinate, the subordinate just accepts that answer. And that's why the why works. But if you did not accept what I just said, then that's not the correct answer. But who, when, where, how, what? Those are matters of fact. They're reality. There are things that happen that you can pinpoint the situation at hand. So, how do you identify? When did you identify it? Where did you identify it? All these different aspects that take you down this path to make you question, right? Because the better question yields the better answer. A different question yields a different answer. To change your direction, to do something different, you have to do something different. Because as I always say, action precedes action. But the initial action, the very first one, is the thought. It's the mind, right? It's those things that you think of. Do you realize that everything in your world, everything you have ever seen, conceived of, thought of, been to, the pavement on the road, the paint on the road, the grass where it is, the curbing, the asphalt, the trees, the walls, the houses, you name it. That was a thought in somebody's mind before it happened. That was the action. It was the question that triggered the thought, that triggered the action. All these things with intention. But it comes down to, what do you identify as? Because here's the thing. If you don't specifically identify as a certain somebody in any capacity, the world will choose that for you. And you will just kind of go in motion like this leaf blowing in the wind, an analogy I've used several times before in this show. Your environment will choose that, who you hang around, which, by the way, is why it's so important to hang around those top 5 people that you want to be like. They should be ahead of you in whatever you're trying to do. Because your environment dictates so much of who you are. If you're tired of being a loser, stop hanging out with losers. You can still love your friends from afar. Get new friends. You can change your house. You can change your body. You can change your friends. For some of you, you can change your spouse if that's necessary. There are so many things. You can change your relationship with your spouse. When I say change your spouse, I don't necessarily mean be with a new person, right? But that person who you're being with can change. There is change that needs to happen in your life. That's the simple step. Asking the question, who am I? What do I hold valuable? What are my beliefs? Because as we already know from previous episodes, your behaviors or your habits are triggered by your beliefs, which are triggered by your values, which are triggered by your identity. if you want to change your behaviors, which I'm assuming you want to, that's why you're listening to this show, you need to change your identity. Otherwise, they will not be lasting. I hope you can grasp this concept, as basic as it is, as fundamentally rudimentary. It's fundamental, it's rudimentary as it is. It is so hard to wrap your brain around. To start asking, what do I truly believe? What are my beliefs, my values, and ultimately my identity? So, I thank you for being here. I thank you for showing up today. I thank you for listening to this show, watching this show. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for our interaction. I am grateful for our communication. I ask you, I plead with you to continue this conversation with yourself by asking these questions. What do you identify as? With your friends, your family, because talking about it engages more questions, right? Your friends might bring up those things you have yet to consider, and that by considering them, you'll get to where you want to go. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to stand before you, to speak before you, and share those learnings that I have learned. A lot of times through trial, but that's how you learn, right? Through trial. Share this anywhere. Give me a review. Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube, wherever it is that you watch this. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Mr. Brad Draper. I would love to chat. Let's communicate. Like it, subscribe to it, download it for future listenings. Until next week, I love you guys. Bye.